Am I the a-hole for disowning my adoptive son since he chose his people over us? I'm 44, my husband is male 40, been married for 20 years, together for 22, and our adoptive son is male 24. He's black, and we're not. I'm only mentioning this because it's relevant to the story later. This does not take place in the US, and English is not my first language. Let me give a little bit of background to the situation. About 19 years ago, me and my husband had been driving on a highway, back from a small vacation, when along a particularly long stretch of road, absolutely no buildings around, only a ton of grass and hills as far as the eye could see, we spotted a little boy just sitting by the side of the road. Like I mentioned, there was nothing around for miles, and no cars close to where the boy was, so we decided to stop and see if everything was okay. When we got closer to the boy, let's call him Jason, fake name, it was very easy to see he was dirty and malnourished, since the only thing he had on were some diapers. He was so small it didn't look like he could be older than 3, later found out he was actually 5. We asked him why he was alone, and he told us that mommy and daddy put him here and told him to wait. There was no cell signal in the area, so we did a sensible thing and brought him back to the town to the nearest police station. To make a long story short, CPS was called. We discovered his parents were some druggies that were on the run for a felony. The only other relative Jason had was his grandmother, who was very mentally ill and couldn't take care of him, and we felt bad. He went into foster care soon after, but we felt bad for the kid and kept in touch with his caseworker. I had, still do, an extremely well-paying job at a time and could easily afford a decent lifestyle for a small family. So after a few months of discussion between ourselves, the caseworker, and some bureaucracy, we formally adopted Jason. Now onto the situation. About 3 years ago, Jason's parents were released from prison on parole. They contacted him not long after in hopes of reconnecting. Prior to that, they'd sent him a few odd letters here or there, but nothing really substantial. At first, he was hesitant to talk to them, but ended up caving and meeting them for lunch one day. I'll admit that a part of me was a bit jealous and apprehensive of what could happen. But I could see that it really was something that my son wanted to do, so for his sake I swallowed those and supported him through it. It wasn't very long, about 3 months I think, that he started to pull away from us. At first I chalked it up to him being excited to actually talk to his bio parents after so long, talk about what had been going on in his life, spend some time with them, etc. It started to bother me when he'd cancel plans with us last minute because mom had an emergency or dad really needs me to help with him something today, or whatever other excuse he could come up with. He used to come over to our house at least once a week, call every day or so, but now we were lucky if he even came by that month. Again, I thought that was just temporary, that he was just excited, and soon enough he'd start spending some time with us again. We were overjoyed when he invited us over to dinner one night. It was supposed to be a family gathering, us and his bio parents and his wife, girlfriend at a time. I wasn't exactly keen on meeting the people that had left my son for dead on the side of the road, but decided to give them the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe they'd atoned and changed. Besides, he's our son, and we love him. We had to at least try. To say the dinner was a disaster is an understatement. His bio mom was extremely rude to me and my husband the entire night, making passive-aggressive, bigoted, and racist remarks every chance she got. His father was much the same. It all came to a head when she straight up called us some slurs and threw a glass at my husband. A screaming match followed and we left soon after. The next day, Jason apologized profusely and promised they'd never do something like that again. I told him neither me nor my husband wanted to have anything to do with him and would appreciate if he understood that. He seemed to, but continued to pull away the next few months. And that leads to what happened last week. Jason proposed to his girlfriend about 9 months back and has been preparing for the wedding since. Of course, we were overjoyed for him, but a few months went by and no invitation came. Every time we asked, Jason would say they hadn't been sent out yet and changed the subject. Well, last week my husband saw a Twitter post from one of Jason's friends, his groomsman, that went a few weeks back with the invitation in hand. We confronted Jason about it the next time he came over, only for him to drop the bomb on us that we hadn't been invited. We asked why, and he said his parents didn't want us there, and wouldn't come if we did. I was freaking furious. I asked him how could he choose those pieces of trash over us, why they were so important. What did we do to deserve this kind of treatment? His answer? They understand me better. They're my people. At this point, my husband was crying, asking how could he do this. I've only ever been truly angry a few times in life, and this moment managed to top all of them. I threw him out right then and there and told him to never come back, that he wasn't our son anymore. I spent the rest of the day hugging my husband and trying to calm him down. The next day, I canceled everything we'd paid for the wedding, which was basically everything important, even the ones we couldn't get a refund on. Of course, Jason had a gall to call and scream at me, asking how I could do that to him. Where would he find replacements for a wedding that was supposed to happen only a few months from now? I told him I didn't care, and said, maybe you should ask those two leeches you call parents for some help. 19 freaking years of my life spent raising and loving a kid that I considered my own son, only to be treated like garbage. Giving blood, sweat, tears, so he could have a good life. All the love we could possibly give. And that's what we get as a reward? As for why I'm asking if I'm the a-hole, some people have been calling and messaging us, mostly Jason's friends and a few of our family members, calling us heartless and monsters for doing what we did to him. And that's honestly got me questioning if I went a bit too far in anger. After all, parents are supposed to love unconditionally, right? But if so, how do we ever get over something like this? How can we deal with this feeling of betrayal? Are we justified in feeling like that? Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Info. Did Jason receive therapy growing up? Did you have family therapy? When the bio parents returned, were you open with Jason about your feelings? Raising him, did you expose him to a Black community and discuss the complexities of race? Yes, he did receive therapy. As for exposing him to the Black community, I know this is different in the US, but over here we don't really have a Black culture. The whole country is pretty diverse, even more so in the city we live in, so he did get a lot of exposure to other Black people. At least a third of his classmates were Black. He did get very into US Black culture when the internet started becoming more accessible here, and we did encourage him a lot. He did face some racism growing up, and we of course helped him through it. Forget everything else. Why would you pay for a wedding you aren't even invited to? I wonder if all the people calling and messaging them to tell them they're heartless know they're not even invited to the wedding. Not only this, but Jason made it seem like they were invited because he knew it was messed up. He kept saying that invites weren't out yet and stringing them along. He only admitted it when they saw the pictures of someone with an invite from months before. He was perfectly happy to let them pay and keep them in the dark as long as possible. At this point, he wants the love and family of his bio parents, but the money and support from the people that took him in and raised him. He might not 100% realize what he's doing, but that's what's happening. Not the a-hole. Did he seriously expect you to pay for a wedding you weren't even invited to? The damn audacity of it has my blood boiling. Learning it from his new parents. His learning leeching from some of the best. Next story. Am I the a-hole for saying I wouldn't allow my brother and his kids live with me when I buy my house? Hi, so I've been saving to put a down payment down on a house in Brooklyn. It's been hard saving and skipping night outs, etc., but I've always wanted to have something in my name so that later in life it will pay off. I never usually tell my family about me making big decisions because in some way they always try to spin it to try to benefit them. I told my mom that I'm excited about a house I saw. It's in Brooklyn, but in the suburb of Brooklyn. The house needs some work. New driveway, paint. I definitely would redo the kitchen. I've always been handy, and I could do most of this stuff myself or figure it out. I've fixed/worked on my car by watching videos on YouTube, so I would probably do the same with the house. But I wouldn't mess with the plumbing or electrical work. It is a decent-sized house, has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and has a decent-sized yard. I told my mom about it, and she told my older brother. It's him, his wife, and 3 kids. They live about an hour and a half north, but he also works in the city like me. He called me and told me how our mother told him about the house. He does work as an electrician and said he could help if I needed. I thought, oh wow, that's great. He has his own house up north as well. I've been approved for the loan and waiting on paperwork, etc. He just called me today and asked me when is he and the kids are moving in because he has to ask off work to move things. I was so confused because I thought he was just messing with me. So I said, wait, what are you saying? He said that he offered to do electrical work in the house so he and his kids should be able to live there. I explained to him in what world does he believe doing electrical work equates to him living in a house that is mine. He started to go on about how having multiple kids is expensive and commuting every day for work is costly. I simply said that is not my problem. You are an adult. I hung up on him. My mom called me screaming, saying, why am I promising to let my brother stay in the house and now changing my mind? I never promised anything to him, and it's annoying that he is trying to manipulate the situation. I told my mom that he offered to do electrical work, and now he's saying he is moving in. I told her he is not moving in, and I'll hire someone else to do the work. She started to tell me they're close to losing their house and need help, and that I should, because we are family. I asked her, why is it that the people who are telling someone else to help always the ones not offering help? My mom telling me to help, but she's not offering for them to stay with her. I said it's not going to happen. Majority of my family have been calling me and saying I am disgraceful. It's so annoying because I don't want my brother on the street with his family. But what if I never got the house? They would have still been in the same predicament. I refuse to help. It makes me not even want to buy the house. Not the a-hole. Their housing is not your problem. And them being about to lose their home means they don't have the means to pay you. So you'd be housing freelancers who would be establishing residence rights. Everyone who calls can offer accommodation or shut up. Exactly. They're yelling at me for not helping, but they themselves haven't offered anything. Call up brother and say you talked to mom and she would be happy to take them in. Your family sucks. Your mom is likely to blame. Boundaries are your friend, not the a-hole. Yeah, there's no such thing as that in my family. That's why I usually do everything secretly. They don't even know what I do for work. Don't even give them the address at this point. I smell boundary stompers. Not a-hole. They're just trying to use and abuse you. Don't let them move in and don't even let them come in at this point if they show up there. I never usually tell my family about me making big decisions because in some way they always try to spin it to try to benefit them. I told my mom, dude, all the people phoning to berate you can either open their homes to your brother and his family or all chip in to pay his rent and put them all on a strict information diet. Block the flying monkeys and go low contact with your mom and brother for a while. Why are you knowingly giving them so much power over you? I think even when we know we have quite toxic families and are best off being low contact, when big life events happen, there's still this desire to share it with our moms and somehow magically hope we will get a nice response. Unfortunately, we always get disappointed. OP is aware. I feel sad for you, OP. Your family sucks, but you sound clever and resourceful. Congratulations on a house and don't give family the address. Last story. Am I the a-hole for asking my aunt to not bring her kids when she comes to see us? My 16 male brother Danny, 17 male, currently is in at-home hospice care. He has metastasized bone cancer, and he's conscious but in bad shape, and understandably pretty upset with the way things has gone down. The doctors are saying 3 to 5 weeks. Our parents chose not to tell him, and he blew up at them, and there was a crap ton of screaming and crying. He's living in the living room since the stairs are a no-go, and life as we know it is finally approaching its bitter end. We've reached a part where family is starting to come and say goodbye, and my aunt is due to come with her family next week. Danny wants there to be no kids because they're stressful. He doesn't have the patience he used to have, and he gets really angry. And it's really not an environment where kids should be playing. It's not just small children, it's me too at times, but Dan apologizes and we go back to being bros. Anyway, my aunt has 3 boys under the age of 10 and she plans on bringing them all. We're not close with these kids, we don't like them, and our mom told the both of us that we have to make an effort for her sister. Our 7-year-old niece, who we are close to, was here last week, and she messed up by standing on his IV line, and he exploded at her and screamed, "You're messing up everything, you stupid bee," because his brain isn't working like how it used to. I basically said screw it and called my aunt, explained that Danny can't handle her kids, and asked that she not bring them. She blew up at me and told me that I didn't have the right to tell her who can and cannot set foot in her sister's house, and she's not coming at all now. This has obviously caused a huge amount of stress in the family, and my mom had crying breakdown this morning at me, called me an a-hole and a bastard, and threw a salt shaker at me. But she's living in her own world and not doing anything, so I told her that back. Danny's out of it. My mom says I'm the a-hole and my dad is constantly working since he can't face the music. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. You're a good sibling. And if your parents are too caught up in their grief, at least Danny has you there to help share his needs and wants with others. Sending you and your family my very best during this unbelievably difficult time. I am so proud of Opie for voicing his brother's needs to their aunt. An absolutely courageous stand to make as a teen in such an awful situation. I hope all the love in the replies here bolsters his spirits. He's doing so well. Not a-hole. This time should be about making your brother as comfortable as possible. Yes, the family wants to visit and say goodbye, but his well-being and mental state are what matters most. As a mother, I cannot comprehend putting someone else's wishes and wants in front of my dying child's wishes and needs. This is an upsetting time for everyone, and bringing impressionable children around when they most likely will not understand the enormity of the situation and behave accordingly is crazy. Yes, your mother needs support from her sister, but your aunt should, as an adult, realize the kids will cause unnecessary chaos. I deeply feel for you and your family, and wish you all as much love and peace as possible in this devastating time. Thank you. I hope your kids are always well. The priorities here are your brother, you, your parents, then other people. It sucks that you have to be the adult, but as I don't have to tell you, everything sucks. If kids tire brother out, then no kids. They can make drawings. Tell them they can yell at you in a year when you've all had time to grieve. Okay, now to you. Do you have anyone, older, trustworthy, that you can bring in like today? Friends, parents, other cousins, uncles, anyone? I hear you giving Dad a pass. But no, he's not allowed to escape and work when something of this magnitude is being parked on a 16-year-old kid. Mom seems like she truly is out for now, so Dad has to help find another adult to run logistics, interference, and support. It's awful, but you're not alone. The YMCA often has bereavement gatherings, or the hospital, or the hospice. There's a whole known set of stresses unique to being the healthy sibling, and feeling guilty, and deserving of care, because your brother's needs are so great and time-limited. But you are a son, a brother, a child, losing someone important, and you matter too. This is all too much for the adults. It's way, way, way too much for a 16-year-old. You need support, and someone you can put between you and a whole aunt. I hope for a peaceful, loving, pain-free passing for your brother, and people who can envelop you and your parents, so you can be given the care and space you need.
Would I be the a-hole if I take my nieces back to my sister's house? My 24 female sister 28 has 2 kids, 6 female, 4 female, and asked me if I could babysit them for the weekend, starting today, 3 days ago. I told her I couldn't. I was exhausted from work, and I really just wanted the time to myself and my boyfriend this weekend. She was mad, but I figured she'd get over it. Yesterday, she called me again to ask if I could babysit, and I told her that I could next weekend, and then she went on to explain that she wanted time to herself. I told her to ask our parents because they were tired and likely want to see them, but for whatever reason, she didn't want to. I said no again, that I was sorry, but I was able to do it next weekend. Today, I wake up to banging on my door, the doorbell ringing a few times, so I go see what the hell the problem is. It is my nieces, with backpacks just standing there. They're not particularly close to me because of the pandemic, so they look more confused than anything. I'm tired as hell. I feel like I'm in no shape to watch children for 3 days, let alone children that can barely do anything on their own. Not to mention my apartment isn't childproofed. The kids are eating a snack right now, and I feel beyond disrespected that my sister dropped her kids off at my place with no warning, completely ignored me telling her that I was tired. Furthermore, she was gone by the time I answered the door, and I'm mad that she left literal babies by themselves on my doorstep. I could have not been home. Then what? The complex I live in is across from a little strip mall within walking distance, so my car could be in the lot. But that doesn't mean I'm home. Would I be the a-hole if I drove them back to her house? I just feel like I'm not mentally prepared enough this week. Now for the top comments before reading the little update. Group text to her and your parents saying, I'm calling CPS if the kids are not picked up within the next 45 minutes. This is the best solution. Your sister abandoned her children. What if she dropped them off when you weren't home? It's the same thing. Exactly. I'm 20, and my mom will still wait for me to go in the door if she drops me off anywhere, just to make sure I'm safe. Not Dayhall. There was something seriously wrong with Opie's sister. What if Opie had decided to go out or even away for the weekend? Then there are two small children on their own with no idea what's going on and no way to look after themselves. Calling CPS is 100% in the realm of possibilities. Not Dayhall. However, I won't drive them back. I will call her and tell her to get herself back and pick up her kids. And if she's not here in an hour, you're calling the police. Also not going to babysit them next weekend or ever since she's so disrespectful. This, exactly. She abandoned her kids at your door? She didn't even know for sure you were home. Yeah, she has 1 hour to get them or the police are coming for them. And I would never babysit those kids as a favor for her ever. And now for the little update. I made a group chat with my parents and my sister and made a recap of the situation for my parents. I said that if she wasn't coming in the next 45 minutes, I'd be calling CPS. My sister was frantically begging me not to. But like I said, and many of y'all said, she left literal babies on my doorstep without even knowing if I was home or not. Then she goes on about how she needed a break and that she was desperate. At this point, the chat turned into a video chat, and I felt like I could hear the distress in her voice. So I do believe she's having some mental problems at the moment. She said she was coming to pick them up, and my parents interjected that they'd be happy to take the girls. My parents also suggested that the girls live with them for a while if my sister was actually in distress. I agree with that, and also said I'd help my sister find a counselor. So now I'm gathering the girls' stuff, giving them some orange slices, and we're on our way to my parents' house right now. Thank y'all for the suggestions. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister and her husband out upon discovering that she was making my niece hide used pads in my daughter's closet? My sister and her husband, daughter 14, my niece, and stepson 17, moved in with us a month ago. My husband and I have a 16-year-old daughter, and we live in a 4-bedroom house. My niece shares a room with my daughter while my step-nephew has a room. My daughter didn't mind sharing because she loves her cousin. They have a ton of stuff in common. It all started after my niece had her period days ago. My daughter was complaining about bad smell coming from her cousin's side of closet. She came to me to help her address this issue since she said she suspected her cousin hiding something with strong smell inside, but said she'd never snoop in her cousin's side of closet even if it originally belongs to her. I decided to look inside my niece's side of closet myself, after my sister brushed it off and didn't let me search. At the very bottom, I found a garbage bag with used pads inside. Not sure how many, but I was in shock and dismay. I was absolutely disgusted and very, very confused. I immediately brought this up to my sister. My sister's initial reaction was to yell that I had no permission to snoop through her teenage daughter's belongings. I reminded her the entire closet is my daughter's and told her to stop stalling and explain the deal with those used pads being stored inside a closet. She said she told her daughter to put her used pads in a garbage bag instead of tossing them in the guest bathroom that her stepson was using because her husband complained about his son not having to see the stuff. So she had her daughter keep the pads in the bag inside a closet throughout the day to take the bag out later at night. I couldn't believe it. I called her horrible to subject my niece and my daughter to bad smell and lack of hygiene just because her husband and stepson can't handle the stuff. I shamed her for her god-awful solution, and she apologized. But I told her to pack and leave after my brother-in-law said this was a family matter that I shouldn't get involved in. My sister pleaded to let it go, then called me cruel for kicking her family out. I said she should be talking to her husband and putting end to this controlling behavior, and that she was doing both her daughter and her stepson a disservice with how blindly she follows her husband's unreasonable demands. She could have told me about this, and I would have let my niece use the main bathroom. My sister's excuse was that my husband would have said no, but couldn't be further from the truth. He was shocked when I told him, but said kicking them out was an overreaction. My mom was upset too, saying the kids are innocent in this and have exams, so I should have waited till they finished. Now for the top comments. Not Dayhall. I think you should offer to continue to provide a home for your niece. Possibly your nephew if you feel so inclined, but I'm not sure how entrenched he is in his father's stupidity. Usually I'd say that you should have offered the opportunity to correct and do better, but your sister sort of threw that out the window. She refused to allow her daughter to ask to use another bathroom in the house. She is the cause of the smell, because she told her daughter to do it. She knew what the smell was, but told you to leave it alone. She got mad at you for not wanting every piece of clothing your daughter owns to smell nasty and investigating. She stood next to her husband, silent as he told you that shaming her 14-year-old daughter for having a healthy, functioning body is not your business, and to just leave it alone and let them continue to mistreat the child. Screw all that. Your sister doesn't want a solution. She wants you to turn a blind eye to the abuse of your niece in your home. You have no obligation to allow that mistreatment to continue under your roof. Yeah, I would really hate for the niece to get the impression from this incident that her bodily functions were so shameful that she lost her safe home. Because depending on how her mom and stepdad have explained it to her, the sequence of events might very well look like niece's period. Period is so disgusting she needs to hide the evidence far from any men in the family. Evidence is discovered. Niece didn't hide it well enough. Niece is so disgusting that they need to leave the home. This might sound absurd because obviously Opie's objection was the exact opposite of that. And she's totally on the side of the two teen girls here. But I don't trust the stepdad and mom here to not blame the niece for all this. Not Dayhall. This is justified if for nothing else than to dispose of this mentality. This was a family matter that I shouldn't get involved in. If they're using your house, then that means they respect the house on your terms. Mystery smells most definitely are your business. However, once you've made sure that they understand that, it's probably best to let them back in. It's one thing to assert dominance and teach them a lesson. It's a completely different thing to just give up and cut them off. Not Dayhall. That's freaking disgusting. It honestly is super alarming. Makes you really wonder what the hell is going on in their heads that would make that right. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for banning my picky eater brother-in-law from my house and telling him he's not welcome until I say he is? Backstory. My wife and I have been married for a year. I've known her and her brother, Jason male 20, for over a decade. They have a 10-year difference. For as long as I've known him, Jason has been a picky eater. His diet consists of fast food and junk food. Essentially at get-togethers, his parents have always gotten him special orders. We'd all be eating salads or some kind of meat, and he'd be eating a fried chicken sandwich. He also smokes cannabis oil. This isn't a problem for me, mostly because how he was raised isn't my problem, and also that I enjoy fast food on occasion and I smoke grass. Nothing wrong with that, and I've tried my best to teach Jason to smoke responsibly. However, there are two things that concern me. First, my in-laws are against smoking. His smoking's gone far. He throws tantrums when he can't smoke, and once got his father arrested due to his habit of running away when he got caught. The second is that Jason throws tantrums when he doesn't get what he wants. For example, recently my wife and I have her cousin and his wife over. Jason came too and asked us to get Buffalo Wild Wings. Jason's order came in wrong. He wanted boneless and got bone-in wings. He started yelling, refusing to sit down and eat, and generally being a brat, all because he didn't get the right food. We called it Buffalo Wild Wings, got a refund, and got him his boneless wings. But I warned him that while I don't care what he does at home, at my house we do things calmly. My wife and I have stressful jobs. Being more stressed on top of that isn't something we want. Beyond that, I was raised to eat what's at the table. Either find something you want or stay hungry. No one should cater to you unless you have dietary needs, allergies, kosher/halal/Hindu, etc. Things came to a head last week. I was in Austin with a group of friends, and my wife decided to host a Father's Day lunch for our families. Jason lost his grass pen and threw a tantrum the day he flew out. On Father's Day, people came over to our house. My folks, hers, my aunt and uncle, my cousin, and Jason. My folks got some Mediterranean takeout for the group. Jason refused to eat it and demanded Pizza Hut. All the Pizza Huts were closed, and he refused anything else, with things escalating to pouting, yelling, and screaming, until finally my in-laws apologized and left with him. I found this out while preparing for a night out, with my stressed wife crying to me over the phone that her parents had left embarrassed in front of my family. I texted Jason immediately and told him I'd warned him before and he's no longer welcome in my home until he learns to behave. My wife and mother-in-law agree with me, for now. I've so far been told I may be the a-hole by my parents, who think I might alienate myself from my in-laws. My dad's reasoning is that they'll all forgive him, but won't forgive me if I stand my ground and not let him come over. So Reddit, am I the a-hole or do you agree with my folks? Now for the comments. Oh, hell no. I was fully prepared to say you're the a-hole, but your title's wrong. You're not banning him from being a picky eater. You're banning him because he acts like a 2-year-old. Not an a-hole. This. Picky eater has nothing to do with it. What he chooses to eat would be a terrible reason to ban him by itself. His behavior is unacceptable though, and you are not at all obligated to deal with it in your own home. Not an a-hole. Yeah, this isn't about being a picky eater. It's about behaving like a toddler. He's old enough that he can pick up food for himself if he's heading to Opie's house. I only suggest this because they're family, and casual enough it can be seen as a solution, not an issue. I wouldn't suggest taking your own junk food just anywhere, but in this situation, if he wants it that badly, he can provide it. Not an a-hole. The problem isn't that he's a picky eater, it's that he's an a-hole. He is far too old to be acting like a toddler. I wouldn't let him in my house either. My dad's reasoning is that they'll all forgive him, but won't forgive me if I stand my ground and not let him come over. So Reddit, am I the a-hole or do you agree with my folks? This begs the question of why. Why would they repeatedly forgive him but hold you to a high standard? Because they have catered to this behavior for 20 years and created this monster, while you are a seemingly functioning adult with a spouse, job, and home? I notice you don't mention brother-in-law having a job, and I'm very curious in how the heck he got his dad arrested during a tantrum. Behavior like this doesn't just correct itself overnight, it only escalates. How long will it be until he gets violent with someone, or decides to start smashing your things because he can't smoke up? What he needs are firm rules and a therapist. Not to mention his parents sound like they could use a break from him, where they can sit and have a nice dinner without needing to bust out a kid menu for their adult child. No, brother-in-law's in college, and he does have a part-time job. As for how he got his dad arrested, he invented charges, went to the cops hoping to threaten my father-in-law with arrest, and instead ended up getting my father-in-law arrested when he got scared because the cop leading the team told him he'd be screwed if he wound up wasting his time. Charges were dropped a few hours later, but he then threw another tantrum a couple of days later, and my wife called 911 on him. This led to him being hospitalized for a few weeks in a mental health facility. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not taking down my drawings, even though they disturb my niece who's living with us? So I, 18, have been cataloging my dreams for a while, but it was only at the beginning of 2020 that I started to draw them. Now, I don't want to be too edgy, but I've been through some crap as a kid, and it had definitely influenced my dreams. As a result, some of my drawings are creepy. Most of them are just odd dream things. But there are some sinister/creepy drawings there. Anyway, my niece, 17, started living with us at the beginning of June. She's been sharing my room with me, and she hates my drawings. She says they're gross and creepy and that she doesn't like them at all. She asked me when she first moved in if I could take them down, but I said no. Now, 27 days later, she's been complaining to my mom about them, because my mom asked me if I would take them down. I said no again. I reminded my mom that niece is simply bunking with me, and whilst she's welcome, she, niece, has no authority over what I do to my room. My mom pulled the "you're an adult" card, and whilst that's true, I turned 18 in February and would not class myself as an actual adult yet. Now niece is super upset, and keeps going on and on about safe spaces and how I'm a terrible person. Am I the a-hole? Also, niece was originally meant to stay in the spare room, but she didn't like it, so asked to bunk with me. I said yes because I like her and I didn't think it would cause these issues. I also pay rent for my room. Not the a-hole because 1, you're paying rent for your room, but you still have to share it. 2, there is a spare room but niece doesn't like it. This situation is ridiculous. If you're paying rent for your room but she's in there with you, then either you should pay less or she should start paying. Also, if she doesn't like your room or what's in it, she can drag her butt to the spare room. At this point, I think it would be reasonable to insist she stay in the spare room regardless of what she wants. After reading the OP's responses, not the a-hole. She chose to bunk with you instead of in the spare room. If she doesn't like it, there is a whole empty room she could move to. Also, you pay rent. So were you okay with this arrangement, or did your mom allow it against your wishes? That's not fair. You pay rent? Make her use the spare room. What on earth are her reasons for wanting to be in your room when she doesn't like the drawings or the wallpaper, etc.? Not a Hall. Since you pay rent, why do you share your room? That should cut your rent in half. You might consider moving out and renting somewhere else. I'm moving out in September for uni. Niece was actually meant to be the spare room, but she didn't like it, so asked to bunk with me. I said yes, thinking it wouldn't cause this issue.